Technology. Wow. Such an unstoppable force. In spite of being with us since the beginning of time, it never gets old, never loses its shine or its futuristic appeal. And honestly, what a cool word to kick off a video, right? It's very easy to fall in love with technology. But wait, what about us? That's the question we have been asking ourselves for the past 25 years, every time we partner with this incredible force. Should we get along with technology invading our lives, or perhaps use it to help us live longer? Should we keep collecting millions of apps, or maybe develop an app that can deliver joy to millions? Should we be connecting through never-ending feeds, or better connecting the ones who feed us? Should we surrender to AI and embrace an uncertain future, or use it as a tool to build our own? You see, for us, it's not about stopping technology. It's about pausing to ask the right questions. Because the answer, well, the answer we already have. Santex. Yes, it's possible.
Muy bien. Buenos días.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second day. For these 3 days, we'll be addressing future changes and innovation. Yesterday, we had a great day with outstanding speakers. Today, I'm really willing to listen to the speakers. We have over 25 experts discussing this disruptive wave of generative AI. My name is Sebastián Campanario. I'm a La Nación columnist. I've been hosting the meeting since yesterday. You can participate, you can join our social media. There are awards for the best questions. The title of today's talks, 3 days for a better tomorrow. Yesterday we focused on global challenges. Today, technological challenges. In a few minutes, we have our first panel to address very specific cases of application with excellent outputs in terms of technology and AI. And tomorrow, we'll be discussing human challenges. These are the three main pillars. I'd like to thank the sponsors and the people that are here with us. In all, we are 5,000 participants. So we're really many people. A round of applause for those that have been putting together this event. Special thanks to Santex supporters. Special thanks to the government of Cordoba, who's the main sponsor of this event. Special thanks to Cordoba Acelera. Agency will show a video of Cordoba Acelera Agency.
Córdoba late, palpita al ritmo de su liderazgo, con la fuerza de sus clústeres, de sus industrias y el desarrollo de nuevas tecnologías. Late a partir de su acervo cultural, su calidad educativa y su economía del conocimiento, nutriéndose de sus universidades y sus profesionales, así como de la diversidad, la igualdad y la inclusión, interrelacionando trabajo y crecimiento en una dinámica de economía circular y comunitaria. Palpita y en cada latido proyecta el crecimiento al compás de una industria pujante, innovadora y creativa. Córdoba productiva. Córdoba capital.
Muy bien, estamos durante 3 días
We are co-creating impact solutions for a better future. This event is open to the entire community. not only customers, but people in general. So welcome you all. Special thanks to Copa Airlines. Thank you for flying this adventure. OSDE, also supporting this event, AmCham, Cordoba, Innovar, and Emprender, Cabify, and University Siglo XXI. Having said this, I will now introduce the next panel. First of all, Claudio Manero, who's the AGD CIO. Claudio has vast experience in IT. He sees technology as an added value. In 2019, he got an award by Mercado Journal, Ivana Kerman. Thank you, Ivana. She's a technical sales specialist team lead in Autodesk. She fosters the adoption of technologies, forefront technologies, and BIM tech. She traveled the world. She is an architect. She graduated from the National University of Cordoba. Gonzalo Rodriguez, CTO at Bancor. Thank you, Gonzalo. And welcome. He is the Bancor technology lead. He has over 25 years of experience in the field. He is well known for being the CEO of BIS Analytics that specializes in machine learning and AI. Just a brief summary of the people that are here with us today. Graciela Chicha, Director of Innovation and Technological Development at INSUD. Welcome, Graciela. She's the Director of Innovation and Technological Development at INSUD. She's the member of the Chamber of Technology and director of several startup associations, president of the Scientific and Technological Development departments in Argentina. She was involved in different institutions. Welcome. We're going to start our conversation. It's an informal talk. Feel free to ask any questions or give in your points of view. First of all, a brief introduction, a 1-minute introduction to discuss a title of innovation for this year.
In my sector, which is biotechnology, the new thing in 2024, I always make this analogy with which is the human truck. Maria Emilia, Duki, and just to name a few, Lisas, Lucara, they collaborate. And right now, this is the technological convergence in biotechnology. For those who don't know, it is to use a live organism or its parts to obtain a service or a product. It's 3D technology, nanotechnology, and data science. AI is helping us to develop new projects, new challenges. And you were asking me to tell you, why do we have to be on top of it? In my personal experiences, everything is going so fast. In 2016, I was in San Francisco in a biotechnology convention, Findi Bio, which is one of the biggest accelerators in the world. And there was a very young guy, Matthias Muchnik, who saw my face and thought that I was an investor. And he says, I'm going to pitch something that really had just started. And he told me that he was a fan of plant-based things. And he had a database that it was called Giuseppe and an algorithm that we still we're not using AI, that allowed combination of plant-based things and analog to animal protein. And he talked to me about milk, plant-based milk, eggless mayonnaise, and I thought, this guy is delusional. He's talking to me about algorithms. For me, it was a absolutely new world. That is Notco today, the brand. Matthias is a successful entrepreneur. So my point is, we have to be alert because these changes happen all the time.
We have to be really attentive and careful about these revolutions.
All right, my turn now. From Autodesk, those who don't know, we know the typical AutoCAD, the fact that we've had that for more than 40 years. And then when it started, with that product, with that software, you could either have a pencil, a hot dog, a car, or the Empire State Building. With just one tool, you could do anything. Autodesk is now specifically linking to solutions that are part of each one of the industries where we have to be a part of, looking at the business objectives that those industries have, so we can give them technological solutions that are specific to the industry. 2024 and the technological convergence that you're talking about is the reason why Autodesk is thinking about that convergence, so that we can give solutions to those industries. Nowadays, I am an architect. Construction is converging, the industrialization in construction, supported by technology. That's where the benefit lies. That's where the efficiency lies. And everything that has to do with AI and technological developments aim at us being more efficient in whatever we do. That's where we have to give this message, so that technology helps us and not replaces.
Good morning, everyone. From the financial sector, you mentioned that 2024, we have many changes in regards of the rules of the game with the new administration. So banks earn money in a different way compared to now. And this adaptation process is a reflection of where to go and how to plan technological strategies that seek for a collaboration between businesses and technologies. On the other hand, to have a very flexible technological structure that allows us to have a time to market, a very quick time to market, because as the rules of the game change, also consumer behavior change too, because now they choose based on the different options that banks provide. So it's important to have a business architecture that allows for fast implementation of changes of product and services. In AI, so you talked about these, both aspects, Claudia. So first of all, good morning, everyone. I'm really scared from our sector, the agribusiness sector. We see that there is a significant revolution taking place, how the industry is incorporating all of the technological vectors, not only AI, but also the Internet of Things, the robotization of processes. After a very poor year from last year, now technology has become a driver, and would like to thank our business partner, Santex, that supports us. So we have great challenges ahead. The industry had been waiting for them. The business lies in, we are in the worst scenario possible. We have nothing in favor, so it's really challenging. Thank you. And we're really we're looking forward to getting the support from the technological sector. Ivana said that the agribusiness is at the forefront, and it is a sector that has a lot of potential. Now, this question, I have a question. I imagine you have different kinds of projects, technological projects. What kind of criteria do you follow? The name is From FOMO to Reality. What is the criteria used to select, the best projects possible? Claudio? Well, it's become, quite sensitive because we have many products. We have AI solutions that are provided in cybersecurity, which is something that is really a main issue that should be in our agendas. So there's an incredible niche here for companies, and I see that in some cases they come up with excellent proposals, wonderful products, but when you get down to the project, what they offer, then they don't offer much. There are some people that study and they are experts in selling, but the products are not really good for our market.
Well, we are on the other side. We want to sell solutions we want to sell Autodesk to all industries. But basically, where do we stand? It's more or less what I said before, trying to find in that pathway, in the development path, what their business objective is, whatever the industry. So the technology supported by developments and other companies like Santex or Autodesk, understanding what the current systems they have, and the demand and supply is all there. We have to see which one is the most efficient one. And I think that's where we as Autodesk try to approach clients to understand their architecture, their current software architecture or systems, and to help them be more efficient. But it's not a competition. We want to be aligned to what they are currently doing. Graciela, what about you? Well, of course, I based on the scientific method with the data support and doing research. When you're hiring a consultant or a company that is a specialist in these topics, what is the actual experience? I would always say the one-pages, the papers are always the ones that support, but then the experience of the just do it is important. Something that what happens to us in INSUD, we have a lot of open science. We mingle with scientists and academia, and I wouldn't say that they are selling things that don't exist, but there is sometimes a huge difference between what they're thinking about and what the productive sector actually needs. So we have to improve there. Bancoro, what about you?
Basically, we're not a digital bank. The difference between digital banks is that they have a completely different mindset, a more flexible architecture in terms of technology. Their way of creating products is different. They are faster. They have other processes. In a traditional bank, it's more challenging. And today our focus is to try to to um, to actually arrange all of the technological infrastructure or structure to actually foster a business that aims at traceability, because that is where the business is focused on. So the focus is on the customer, business technological structure in order to support that development. In the four cases you're applying generative AI, would you like to discuss that?
Autodesk, for instance, in terms of AI, we focus on helping, technologically helping science. Nothing is going to replace anything. Maybe reading data is easier, entering data is easier to make them more predictable. The mistakes we can make in a construction site, that data that we can be the digital twin that we understand is actually advancing us in time or looking into the future to see what's going to happen in the construction site. It's better to make decisions today. In view of what I have, AI analyzes that data. In the case of Autodesk, that's what we're thinking about. We think about helping the data reading easier, modeling, simulations, sustainability simulations. So we are aiming at making AI an assistant so that we can have more efficient projects. In the agricultural industry, it's a little similar. We're thinking about not looking at in retrospective, but to look at perspective. But it's like when you're in the car, we see the path that you left behind, and now you are looking ahead, the path that is in front of you. That is my mental model, and it's like the industry is in that path. And of course, it's not a digital industry. Clearly, it's not. So it's gonna take time to adopt all those functionalities, but we see the results. And so you were terrified when you started, but now you are more like, I'm sorry, I had some clonazepam in me. Grace, what about you? You're using a bot, right, with AI, generative AI. Yes, Insud is a huge conglomerate. It has biotechnological companies, agricultural companies, energy companies, a movie company, and we are just starting this year actually with AI. I met Juan in a very inspirational conversation when he said that there are many companies that say we have to use AI. We don't know why, but very fast. And I felt myself identified with that. That resonated with me. And as a huge modernization, we went from Excel to Power BI. And with all this quick learning that we have, we're thinking about a virtual assistant with generative AI that will help us. All those information silos, we want to use them better. And in terms of production, what we see is that there are many sensors, the 4.0 industry automation, and we collected a lot of data, a lot of data. I was telling you about live organisms. So maybe you have a mammal cell and you make a monoclonal antibody, and you come with certain productivity, and then another run, and a second run, and a second run, third run, and more data. And we started thinking that maybe with AI that we could predict what is the composition or what happens, so that would be better at when it comes to production and more yield. For you to have an idea of the sector, the most expensive company in Europe is a traditional lab. They have a production record of biotechnological services and products, even though there is less money. So it's in the case of Bancor in particular. What are you doing?
Bank today has very few initiatives. What we have implemented are machine learning models oriented to risks mainly, that are later used to make decisions for investments. But the main initiatives for the short and medium term have to do with hyper customization to and obviously I mean AI processes for automation is also part of our roadmap. So in the next 3 minutes, the next question, what is the main challenge for 2025? Are there any awareness or human resources issues? You may have different kinds of challenges.
Yes, the challenge, I see that there are lots of young people here, and I'm sure those that are over 30, they probably know this. There was something called the Yellow Pages that nobody, and the scientists, they're called current content, which was like the Bible, where you took a look at the people. We don't have an innovation map, and maybe in the AI world we would never get that. And I came to Cordoba yesterday. I found a lot of things. I go to Mendoza. I heard a lot of things. The innovation map in Argentina and LATAM is absolutely necessary and is mandatory. And the biggest challenge will be for companies, consolidated companies, to start understanding that part. Our industry is highly regulated. To convince someone to change a productive process, we have to give them a competitive edge. And my dream is to trust on this technologically based startups. On November 27th, we're going to get together. Those companies converged already, and they're applying AI. We have one very onco position in Cordoba. So the challenges are maybe doing more of this. This is convergence and networking. Gonzalo.
In my case, the bank, with the new administration, the initiative is to move forward in terms of digital technologies and transformations. So we're going to focus on a model of operations and technological structures that is quite behind, about 10 years behind. So we would like to move forward in this sense. So digital transformation, cultural transformation, the main goals.
I think cultural transformation is something that really resonates with us. Resistance to change. You've been doing the same thing the same way for 30, 40, 50 years. The tallest buildings were built with AutoCAD. Why do I have to go to a digital model, to digital twins, or to the BIM model, where everything is there, all the information is there? So I think it's a long-term strategy that we have to set and lay the foundations so that we can measure. And then that resistance to change in the construction industry is the ones that is challenging us the most. It's exactly that, to understand it as a project, as another project. The project has stages. We finish one, we go on to the next. In this case, it's the same thing, having a strategy, a transformation, a digital transformation, and go on that.
I think that the main challenge is for those of us who are in management, because what I see is that when I'm asked, I got to the company, I asked them, what is the IT systems or the IT department? And they say servers and so on. But if we are responsible for those departments, we don't manage systems, we manage knowledge. And knowledge management is in people. So the best thing we can do is to invest time in you, to develop you as professionals and people, because you're going to give us the technological evolution. Thank you very much for your participation. A round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you, Graciela, Claudio, Gonzalo, Ivana. It's been an honor. Picture. A privilege, really. There's simultaneous interpretation. The following two talks were going to be in English. So you can scan the QR code so as to have access to the translation. We'll now welcome Our next speaker, Jason. Jay, welcome on stage. Jay has vast experience in management and risk analysis. He optimizes business strategies. He Fortune 500. He provides services to Fortune 500 companies. It is an honor for me to meet Jay. He is also a close friend of Rebecca One. We had the chance to talk to Rebecca yesterday on global challenges, disinformation. Let's welcome Jay with a warm round of applause. It's an honor to have you here.
Hi, test. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. It's great to be here in Cordoba. So today we're going to talk about some things that were discussed a moment ago, and I'd love to get some input from you and some thoughts from you as well. We're going to talk about this question, which is maximizing AI value and the digital transformation journey. And I'm Sumit J. Sen, CEO of BetterContext.ai. So my background, very briefly, is I've spent over a decade managing PhDs. I was focusing on building prediction models for Fortune 500, which is the biggest companies in the US, banks. I built over 100 models over a decade, and I was also the chief credit officer for, on the other side, to make decisions for the bank of about $17 billion. So I'd like to start just by sharing some insights and observations about Santex. One thing that really impresses me and that makes me feel connected to Santex, and I serve as an AI advisor to Santex, is that focus on caring about people. You know, we heard a little bit this morning from the panel about how important the cultural transformation is, and Santex really considers AI as a mechanism to enable people to be more effective. And the other thing I like about Santex that's really close to my heart is that there's a consideration and thoughtfulness about risk and safety. By the way, if you don't have a headset, maybe you need one. I'm speaking English. I'll speak slowly, but if you need a headset, let someone know. So just last week, my company launched a new product called Open Ideas. And Open Ideas is an AI layer on every conference, every speaker worldwide. And so even today, you can scan the code, and you'll be able to get the top 5 ideas from my talk. But as a bonus, you'll also get access to my chapters from my book as I'm writing it and sending it out, which will follow up on today's talk. So please scan it and share what you learn on LinkedIn. So in the next 20 minutes, aproximadamente 20 minutos, we are going to explore this question. It's the question the panel was asking. We hear about AI, all these advances. Why aren't we realizing the business value sooner? And to really answer this question, we need to look at digital transformation completely differently. We need to be able to answer these other questions. First, what exactly enables AI to work well? Second, what can cause an AI to make mistakes? And third, what kinds of teams will get us there faster? So what I'd love to do for you guys to participate a little bit is just look around, left, right, behind you. Just turn around and look around a little bit and tell me what you see around you. Tell me what kinds of people are sitting next to you, okay? And what I see in this room, really, are a lot of smiles, a lot of warmth, And I see people with different backgrounds. I see, are there any AI engineers and AI scientists in this room? Right? We have some. Are there any software developers in this room? We have some. Are there any people from government in this room? I'm not a government person, but are there any government people in this room? There are some. Are there any senior executives in this room? There are quite a few. Are there any product managers in this room? There are some, right? So the question then becomes, if I was to sit with you, each of you, over a mate, and I was to ask you this question, what would you do to transform the company you're helping, the company you're working for? What would you do? Take a moment and think about how you will answer that. I've done this at many companies, and what has surprised me is that people in different roles, they answer the question in completely different ways. So what I want to do today is to build bridges amongst all your different perspectives so we can have a common language and maximize the value of AI together sooner. All right, let's go back to the beginning. Let's understand intelligence. What is it? So here's an interesting question. Have you ever thought, what is the most beginning building block of intelligence? Have you ever considered what is the first building block of your own intelligence, of any intelligence? Take a moment and think about it. Anybody want to volunteer an answer? Okay, here's what I came up with. Ready? It's going to maybe be very obvious, but a little bit strange. Okay? Memory. Okay? Memory is really interesting, and why is it interesting? It's interesting in part because when you look at a human child and you think about intelligence, right? The child is building up their knowledge and their intelligence one experience at a time. And it turns out that the quality of those experiences for a human child are very important, as well as the quality of the feedback. Now let's look at the other side of memory in terms of its relationship to intelligence. They're critical. Memory is really critical for you to make choices. It's critical for you to make connections between different things, to have a coherent view of the world. And, well, I can read the slides here also. And if you could vastly improve your ability to remember things, right, how would that shift your ability to make connections and discover new things in the world? But the other side of intelligence is, what if you lost half your memory? Would that impact you? Do you feel like you would maybe, have a hard time to make decisions? So in summary, memory is very important for intelligence, okay? Memory is actually a building block of intelligence. Intelligence depends on memory. This is a slide I showed last year. This is how computers build memories. On the left side is the human brain, human neuron. On the right side is the artificial neuron. And this is how humans learn and computers learn. So this is where it gets interesting. This is actually where it feels really surprising now, okay, in this next few moments. When I thought about human intelligence, and I took a step back, our intelligence in this room, what I realized was that we as human beings have built up a framework over hundreds of years so that we can train new human beings to be intelligent. And that framework starts at the very beginning, 10,000 years ago, with stories, people sitting around a fire and telling each other stories. It took thousands of years for us to start writing things down and creating books. But even when we had books, we didn't organize them in libraries. It took quite a while to build libraries. And then after libraries, we started to have universities. And then finally, we realized you need real-world experience, so we started to really emphasize on-the-job training. Every doctor, every lawyer has to have that. So here's the interesting question, right? It took us hundreds of years to build that framework to train human beings to be intelligent. What does that framework look like for building AI? What's that framework? So here's a quick story. It's a true story. And the question that it asks is, can an AI model predict as well as a human being with 20 years experience? So I was leading a bank of PhDs, and our bank was losing a lot of money, about $1 billion, is quite a lot of money every year, on something called bankruptcy. That's when someone cannot pay back the loan in America. And I wanted to build a prediction model. And my goal was to predict earlier than the humans, so that we would give the customer a chance to have some time to create some more options for them. But when I went to the experienced people and I said, hey, I want to build this prediction model, you know what they said? This is a very emotional decision. This is not something that you can predict with math. Okay? You can't do it. Bankruptcy is an emotional, personal decision. A computer cannot predict this. So we built it. And we decided to show an experiment. This is something very important. We split the team into 2 groups of 50 experienced collectors each, and it looks like this. Group A is going to use our model to try to call earlier, and Group B is going to do it based on 20 years experience. What happened surprised everyone. The room that used our prediction model, they said customers were almost crying with relief. Because the customers didn't know what to do. They had no options. And so all of a sudden, even before the experienced collector could see there was a problem, our model could predict earlier. We could predict much earlier. And we were able to give the customer time, the really important few weeks before they went over the cliff and fell over the cliff, to work out a payment plan. And they could avoid bankruptcy, right? So our bank became a friend to the customer, and we became the first that they would decide to pay. And we saved about $250 million per year. And most importantly, thousands of people got contacted earlier because of our model, and they didn't have to file bankruptcy. So that was a short story. So how does this relate to creating a digital transformation framework to train AI and to create the maximum value of AI? And how was I able to build that model? So the reason we were able to build a model was because my team and I found a brand new way of identifying patterns in the data. We also found brand new kinds of data that no one had looked for. And we were able to find model patterns that both humans and other models were missing. Essentially, we improved the memory of the system. So let's consider briefly, okay, what else is needed for intelligence? I've been talking about memory for a while. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'll just briefly explain some of the other building blocks of intelligence. First of all, you need to be able to perceive and sense what's out there in the world. So now we have a lot of computer vision, et cetera. That's very important. Memory we've discussed. Identifying patterns, that's very important. The third one is where all of us come into play, okay? This was interesting to me. You can actually make a system more intelligent just by asking better questions. So that's really interesting. And people don't think about that frequently. What's the level of how do we ask the question? Planning is also very important to intelligence, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Yesterday, Jonathan mentioned, for example, the O1 model from this is from not Anthropic, but OpenAI, and they're starting to do the planning. Once you start to take action, something goes wrong, that's when you have to adapt. Oh, I went this direction, it's wrong. And this is the last one there is also very interesting to me. When we think of intelligence, how much of it is really the collaboration, okay, between different people with different backgrounds? So at this point, you're thinking, Jay, great talk, you know? Just build the best AI training system, and we're done. Right? Actually not, because there are some problems with learning systems. There are actually two kinds of risks that I'm going to explain to you, and when you leave today, you'll understand these two types of risks, okay? And these are the places that AI engineers, developers, product managers, and business leaders need to connect and have discussions and build the organization around. They're very simple concepts. You'll understand them in a few minutes. The first is called underfitting, and the other is called overfitting. So anyone who is not an AI scientist, please close your eyes for 5 seconds. If you are an AI scientist, you know this is related to the Bayes-Variance problem. Okay, that's it. That's the technical term for that. It turns out it's one of the hardest problems in AI, okay? Even after 15, 20 years, people are still struggling with it, with 20 years experience as an AI scientist. So not only can these affecting why we're not realizing the value of AI, but these two problems create a lot of risk. Underfitting and overfitting create a lot of risk for your business. If you don't understand them, then you are not ready for the risk of AI, okay? So the good news is, with the right teams working together, we can actually address both of them. So the definition. Underfitting means the AI didn't find many important patterns in the data. So it didn't actually learn that well, okay? And overfitting is a strange one. Overfitting means it kind of memorized everything, and now it can only do what looks exactly like what it learned. So just as an example, let's say you're buying some loans, and you have 3 columns of data on the spreadsheet. How many of the loans are behind on payment? How many days are they late? And how long have they been with your bank? And you say, oh, you know, these 100,000 loans look very similar to our other 100,000 loans. So you go ahead and buy them. But it turns out that a very small percent of the loans were for like a huge amount of money, like $200,000. But your model didn't pick up on that. That's underfitting, okay? This is a very simple picture, but the model here, as you can see, it's just not flexible enough. It's not have enough dimensions or degrees of flexibility to capture this behavior. And the second is we didn't do a good job with the data to really teach the model. So underfit models really can lead to bad decisions, and we need to be very careful when we use AI to check for that. Now, the other side of that is overfitting, a model that seems too good to be true. Overfitting means that we learn things really, really well, we memorize them, but we can't look for the bigger picture. We can't find the generalization. And this is a big risk because someone will show you this is really working well, and then it fails in real world. An example of that is imagine that you're managing an airport, and you build a model that predicts how long it takes for the passenger to check in. And then what happens is you have 3 years of data, and you build this model, and it looks great. It looks very accurate on paper. But when daylight savings happens, you guys have daylight savings, right? Hours shift a little bit. Hundreds of people miss their flights. So that's overfitting. That could be overfitting. So where did the system go wrong this time? So this is an example of overfitting. You can see it tries too hard. And this is an example where it might be relevant to airline. This is the time it takes the time of day and the amount of minutes to check in. And this looks pretty good, right? But then when you come to the daylight savings, wait, does this work? Not really. This is the new line. And you can see the model is too specific. It memorized 3 years of data, but it can't handle the general case. So hundreds of people are missing their flights. So here are these are the insights from this part, okay? And we're almost through this part, which is number one, bring your business knowledge closer to the AI modeling process. Look for new kinds of data and really think about what that data can tell you about what's happening. Set up checklists, not only for the performance of the data, but to see if the data has changed, okay? So like the daylight savings is the data, that's not the model. But they were looking at the model, not the data. So you gotta look at the data as well. And you need to really understand underfitting and overfitting. So we're almost at the end. The question we started with is, why aren't we realizing the business value with all these advances in AI sooner? And this is essentially kind of the framework for building memory for AI, building the education system for AI. Down here, you can think about it as paper. Then we have, this is like the stories era. Then you have spreadsheets, which are like books, and ERPs, and big data, that's like a little bit like a university. And at the very top, we have to create a framework that enables the AI to learn from real-world experience with human input. And this is a digital transformation.
Este es el mapa de la transformación digital. Esta es como la universidad de la inteligencia artificial. Uno puede considerar crear esto en su propia empresa. En esta universidad para la inteligencia artificial queremos ver todas las capas de los datos y cómo se traducen a inteligencia artificial inteligente. Hay varias historias en toda la empresa. Por ejemplo, las llamadas de ventas. Esa es la primera etapa. La segunda son los registros contables, que ahora están todos digitalizados. En la universidad tenemos que tener gobernanza, tenemos que estar integrados. Y la última etapa, la etapa 3, es la experiencia en el mundo real con los seres humanos. Como resultado, vemos que hay distintos resultados del lado izquierdo. Este tipo de marco que vemos aquí es a donde necesitamos pensar en la cultura. No es algo que uno aprieta un botón y llama a un científico de IA y le dice, bueno, desarrollame esto. Las empresas no se dan cuenta ni maximizan el valor de la IA porque no nos estamos comunicando entre nosotros. Y es allí donde Santex nos puede ayudar muchísimo, porque Santex puede llenar todos esos vacíos y armar un equipo colaborativo. Mi pregunta para todos ustedes es, ahora que ya hablamos de la inteligencia, de la memoria, que ya hablamos de algunos de los errores que pueden realizar la inteligencia artificial, y cuando hablamos de crear este marco que nosotros hemos heredado como humanos durante cientos de años para construir nuestra inteligencia, tenemos que crear ese marco en nuestra organización para maximizar el valor de la IA y nosotros como humanos trabajar conjuntamente. ¿Dónde están ustedes en ese viaje de la transformación digital? Eso es todo. Muchísimas gracias. Soy Jason y esta es mi charla. Gracias, Jay. I compete in the Rubik cube, and we are always promoting the cube and how much that impacts in the memory. It was great to meet you. Now we will continue with another presentation. Now, Chris Wen, our next speaker, I'm going to invite him to come to the stage. Chris, are you there? A big round of applause to him. It's a pleasure to have you. Remember, you have simultaneous interpretation. Chris Wendt is Vice President of Technological Services of Syscom, Inc., where he supervises programmers under one single solutions delivery. Since Syscom was created, he had several advances leading the creating team of the cloud environment in Microsoft. Welcome, Chris. The floor is yours.
Buenos dias, everyone. I will keep this in English because my Spanish is super terrible. Welcome to cybersecurity in the age of AI. And I've been working with Santex for about 8 years now, and we have, this is my third time here in Argentina, and I really have been inspired by the culture of Santex. I've been inspired by the way I've been treated. I've been inspired by the way I've seen all of you treat each other. I don't think I've ever seen such warm greetings as walking through these parties and seeing everyone, seeing each other for like the first time since last year or the first time since yesterday, and they're just so excited to see each other. I've been inspired by the way that I've seen people approach problem solving, and I've been inspired by the way that I've seen everyone work on their projects. There's been a lot of other things, but the way people work is kind of the important thing for today. So let's look into that a little bit more. I've really seen an innovative approach. I've seen a proactive approach. I've seen a thoughtful approach, collaborative, and very comprehensive. This has been one of the biggest things that I've seen amongst everyone that I've worked with here. It's been really like a comprehensive thing. If you ask someone to do something and it's in their role, you're like, hey, can you make this button do this thing? They might actually tell you, like, that's going to be a problem 4 roles down the line. They're thinking through things all the way. And when I think about this approach, this really got me excited to talk about cybersecurity, because this group and this approach has a huge ability to really impact the state of cybersecurity for yourselves and for everyone you're working on today and for the future. The future of the apps you're building, the future of AI, the future of the world. Cybersecurity is such a critical piece. If your app is not secure, you really just have built like the world's worst, I don't know, data giveaway, the world's worst vulnerability. You know, you make an app that's wide open and you just made hackers really be able to get your bank info really easily. It's not what we're shooting for here. So there's a number of pieces to cybersecurity, and the first one we're going to talk about is protecting yourself to protect the projects you work on. And this is really a mindset that I want everyone to be aware of. Protecting yourself to protect the projects you work on. And you might not be a developer. That doesn't mean you're not working on projects. You might be on the communications team. You might be on the QA team. You might be in the sales team. If you're selling a project, you're working on that project. So all of you in this audience are a dream target for these hackers. You are the ideal. If I could pick someone to hack, any of you would be a great option. And this global cybercrime is $9.5 trillion industry, which would be the third biggest GDP, third biggest economy by GDP, if that's how it worked. Thank God it's not. So bad actors are specializing in what they are doing. So they had the motivation with the money, and now they have the skills. Because you don't need one guy who's going to give you some spear phishing, get into your account, then move laterally over the next person's account, then get into the system, then get into the infrastructure. They're not doing it that way. They're getting that one person who's spear phishing and gets the token. Then they are sending that over to the next guy who's really good at getting that token and gathering up that data. Then they're sending it over to the next person who's really good at taking all that data and finding where to hit next. So they are specialists. And if they are able to compromise you with these advanced techniques that they have and the money that they have, they are able to get some serious access. Do you have logins to production databases? Who of you has logins to production databases? Let's see some hands. It's actually less than I thought, but you're all here. Who of you has some whitelisted IPs to S3 buckets? Who of you can request new secrets to be created? You know, you don't need to actually have that access, but if you are like the Scrum Master and you say, hey, I just saw this alert that our S3 was breached, can you create this new secret for me? Like, that doesn't need to be a developer. And do you correspond with a single person that can do this? Or the person next to the person that can do this? Because it's not always about getting directly to the person with this access. It's about getting to their sister's best friend, you know, or their uncle's brother's cousin's sister's dog sitter. You know, they are really able to have these multi-step attack vectors to get to you and to get to the stuff that they want from you. If we look at this Microsoft Digital Defense Report, there's a few charts in here. They're all from the Microsoft Digital Defense Report, which you can get to at this link. You're seeing that 10% of attack paths contain 3 steps or less. So I was just talking about all these different steps that you have to take. That's because that's really the common thing. They're not saying, I'm going to go to you who has it. They're saying, I'm going to go 10 steps out, oh, sorry about that, and walk through each one of those. 61% of attacks lead to sensitive user content. 40% of attack paths include lateral movement based on non-interactive remote code execution. 90% of organizations are exposed to at least one attack path. 90%. So pretty much everyone. 3% of organizations are exposed to more than 1,000 attack paths. Let's hope that's no one in this room. And if it is, let's hire someone else in this room to fix that as soon as possible. 80% of organizations have attack paths that expose critical assets. So it's one thing to have an attack path that goes to that file you saved that doesn't matter. It's another to have an attack path that goes to a load of 100,000 social security numbers. So what that attack leads to matters, and less than 1% of organizational assets are of high interest to attackers. Now, it doesn't mean you aren't of interest, because sometimes the asset is not what they're interested in. They're interested in disrupting you. Ransomware by encrypting all of your things so that you can't work. So they're not necessarily interested in your assets all the time. Sometimes all they're interested in is ruining your day so you can pay them to fix it. In LastPass in August of 2022, this is a great example of what can happen when a developer is really compromised. The adversary used information stolen in the initial breach, information from a third-party breach, and remote code execution vulnerability on a DevOps engineer's home computer. So this is 3 breaches and a remote code execution just to get into that DevOps engineer's home computer to gain access to multiple LastPass resources and backups. The threat actor targeted one of the 4 DevOps engineers who had access to these decryption keys. 4 people in the whole world had access to the decryption keys for LastPass, and they found those 4 people. So if you are working on anything important, or your neighbor is working on anything important, or your neighbor's neighbor's neighbor is working on anything important, they're going to find them, and they're going to find you to go through to get to them. So your security always matters. The threat actor was able to capture the employee's master password as it was entered after the employee authenticated with MFA and gain access to DevOps engineer's LastPass corporate vault. And I'm sure you all heard about it from there. It exposed like 1 million passwords or millions of passwords, and it was a huge problem. So now in addition to these things, we have nation-state actors attacking you, this group right here. And if you're like, I don't know if they really are, 24% of these are targeted to IT. This is an IT conference. If you are here, you're in the IT world. You're in the sphere of IT. Maybe not directly, but you are still in that realm, and so you are still being targeted. So you need to protect yourself. Hopefully all of that gave you enough reason to care about protecting yourself. These are some of the basics, and you should already know all of these. If you don't, take a picture of it and dive into it. We can talk about any of these all day, but these should all be fundamentals. You need EDR, which is endpoint detection response. It is kind of like the modern version of antivirus. You need MFA. On every single thing that you log into needs to have MFA. So something you know, something you have, and something you are. Ideally, more of the something you have and something you are, and a little less of the something you know these days. Passwordless authentication is typically considered a more secure approach when it's available. Don't click on bad links. You did not win $1 million from that prince in Abu Dhabi. You didn't, I promise. Don't click the link. That cat video that you got from that random Russian email address, not worth watching. Don't watch it. Don't reuse passwords. If you are sitting there and you need to log into something and you type your password, it's the wrong password to use. Password managers, you should not be reusing these passwords. You should not be using passwords if that's an option, but we're not quite there yet. Don't plug in the USB drive that you found in the ground. We all saw Mr. Robot. That's how they got in. Keep your OS, your apps, and your tools up to date. This is so basic, but that iPad or MacBook that you have at home that's 10 years out of date that you let your kids play with, like don't put production resources on that. It's out of date. It's not secure. It's vulnerable. And obscurity isn't security. I shouldn't need to tell everyone this, but I still see it. It's like, they won't find that IP address. It's obscure. There's been things where people have like stood up SQL servers online, opened them up to the public internet. It's like within 15 minutes they're getting attacked. Just a random IP gets created. I don't know how they find it, but they do, and they're effective. And they have $9.5 trillion to work with to find that one IP. They have the budget for it. And most importantly, because you probably knew all of these already, don't let yourself get lazy with your cybersecurity. It's so easy to go, this one doesn't matter, that one doesn't matter. It all matters. So, these are all basic, but they are the foundation of what all the rest of your cybersecurity is built on. If every user was compromised on your application, it doesn't matter how secure the rest of the application is. We need the users to be secure, so the rest of it is secure. If we look at kind of the chart of what we're seeing from these attacks, 99% of attacks are password attacks. So if you can be passwordless, amazing. If you can add MFA, well, you can add MFA. So most likely anything you're logged into has that option, so you should. In that less than 1% of attacks, there's MFA attacks, SIM swapping, there's post-authentication attacks, token theft, and that token theft is actually something we are seeing a ton of. Like, as an IT company, we are seeing that happen more and more of token theft. That's the #1 way we're seeing things happen right now. And a tiny little portion of that, infrastructure compromise. That doesn't mean you can get lazy with, it's infrastructure, they won't attack that. They still will, but that's not where we're seeing the main effort being targeted here. So some of these trends that we are seeing like internally, we are seeing less attacks happen like at the endpoint. We aren't seeing as often where companies are getting virus pops like 4 times a day on every computer. The EDR tools have gotten so good that these bad actors have not been using that vector nearly as often. I'm not saying they never use it, but that's not as often. The emails to steal credentials are still a trend. So click this link so that you don't have to reset your password. And then you type in your password so you don't have to reset it, which you should have reset in the first place. So bad on all of you for doing that if you have. But the emails to steal credentials, these are still a thing. But MFA really helps with this. If they steal your password and you have MFA, you're not really compromised at that point. Like, you might feel a little dumb, like, they got me. But they didn't get in. That's why you need that multi-factor authentication, so that one factor can get compromised. But the lots and lots of links to steal tokens. And this is something where I feel like not enough people are even aware that this can happen. You can click a link, and if you are authenticated in that browser to Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, they can take that token that you were authenticated with, and they can apply it on another device. So when they take that, it's kind of like when you open up another browser tab and you go to your other Google page and you're still logged in. It's the same concept. And they're just opening up the browser tab on their computer. And they're looking at your email, and they're sitting in there, and they are doing whatever they want with your data. This is really what we've been seeing. We are starting to see providers introduce like token binding techniques where that token gets bound to the device that it's authenticated on. In some ways, it kind of blows my mind that this wasn't a default functionality of tokens. Like, why didn't we start with those tokens bound to the device they were on? But we are here, and they weren't. Unfortunately, most of these that have been introduced where they're token binding have been like paid extra features. So we'll see how that turns out. But once these bad actors are in, once they get in from that compromised endpoint or compromised password, compromised token, they are sitting there. They're just logging in and doing nothing. They're sitting there for 7 days, more often 30 plus days. And they want to see what's going on. They want to find the right vector to get the most for their effort. They want to find that email that you were sending back and forth about getting this $100,000 invoice paid. And they're like, oh, I know, I'm going to take this email, I'm going to jump into this thread, and I'm going to get them to send that to a new ACH number. So they're looking for those. I think they also are waiting for those logs to fall off, because a lot of these logs are, you have your 7-day retention or your 30-day retention on some of these more detailed logs. So if they wait those 30 days, it's a little bit harder to track them down. So in the tools that we are seeing in the cybersecurity space right now, we are seeing a lot more tools to protect users from bad websites. So we talked about that token theft and the stealing credentials. We are seeing things like DNS filter and Microsoft Entra Internet Access, that the idea is to prevent the user from getting to those bad sites before anything can happen. We're seeing more security scanning tools built into repos. GitHub has some really cool ones. It's coming to like GitLab and some of the other pieces. Some of the very cool like AI-generated resolutions are starting to come out, so you can press one button, it opens up a GitHub workspace with the whole vulnerability all resolved for you. Amazing, cuts down that time. We are seeing cloud-native infrastructure security tools that are able to monitor and respond to things at kind of an entirely new level. If you were to there's like Wiz.io or Microsoft Defender for Cloud. If you were to implement, like, let's say a DDoS protection, and you wanted to implement that at a server stack that you spun up at home, it's a huge, huge undertaking. And if you want to look at, password spray breach, you got to program that in. And if you want to look at outdated frameworks or outdated images for your containers, like you have to build that, you have to build that, you have to build that. For some of these new tools, you check a box and it's done. So that infrastructure, these companies are aware of what it can mean to have that infrastructure get compromised, and they're doing a lot to help prevent it. We're also seeing a lot more of this MDR, which is managed detection response. So EDR is endpoint detection response. It's where your computer has an application on it, and it sees that Microsoft Word just launched a PowerShell instance which tried to download a program. That's a very odd behavior, and it stops it. Managed detection response is typically eyes on screens. So you, behind the scenes somewhere, there's a bunch of your logs getting aggregated into one spot, maybe from your cloud account and your endpoint and some other things, and these will get aggregated, make some alerts pop, and then there will actually be a human being on the other side 24/7 monitoring this stuff, looking for any of those weird alerts that they need to dig deeper into, and they need to, let's say, isolate the endpoints or lock out that cloud account. So we've seen a lot of these companies pop up for managed detection response. They also are CDR, XDR, etc. DR. They keep coming up with different names, and they're all some version of there's a human being that takes action when something pops. So, all right, so now that we've set this mindset of keeping ourselves secure, now we want to develop with security in mind. We want to build our applications with a security-first mindset, a security-first approach. Unfortunately, the castle moat approach is dead. You can not really just put up a moat around a castle and protect it if you can have a B-52 bomber fly overhead and drop bombs on it. So we can't just put up a firewall around our application and then say we're secure. No one's inside. This has really moved to a zero trust model. This is the new mentality of the new approach to security is zero trust. And part of the zero trust, there's 3 pillars. One of them is verify explicitly. So you want to, every time there's an authentication, you want to explicitly check authorization for every action, every time. You want to use least privilege access. So if a user needs access to this one file in this one S3 bucket, they don't get admin access to your entire AWS infrastructure. They don't even get admin access to the entire S3 bucket. They get that one file. There's also concepts like just-in-time access. So we're not even just limiting it of what they can get to it, but actually when they can get to it. So you need to escalate that user to be able to have that admin access. And the last one is the most painful to think about. It's assume breach. You spent weeks, months, years verifying explicitly. You spent weeks, months, years using least privilege access, getting yourself secure, adding in all these security tools. But even with all that, you have to say, I'm breached right now. Someone's in my account right now. And you want to minimize that blast radius. You want to verify end-to-end encryption. You want to get these analytics. You want to look for someone acting odd, acting out of the norm in their behavior. So you just assume someone's in my network as much as you don't want to believe it. And I think this is one of the ones that there's a huge emotional aspect of it. Like, it's my app, this is my baby, this is what I've been working on for years. It's safe, it's secure. No, someone's in there right now, probably. So what are some things we can do to secure these applications? We can reduce the credentials. So instead of using secrets and keys and having in your cloud infrastructure, having all these like a million API keys and secrets flying all around, we can actually use managed identities. So when that API is trying to access that database, we're not saying, was that API key okay? We're saying, was the VM explicitly authorized to access this database? So we're identifying the resource and using that to authenticate. That means that there's no sensitive data to even store. So there's nothing to steal. If you are authenticating based on a managed identity, there's nothing to steal. So you are literally removing an entire attack vector is just off the table. Programmatic deployment of infrastructure. This is a great one for like peace of mind and just like to not have to deal with the headaches of deploying to production and manually clicking all these buttons real quick before something flips over. But it's also important for security. So if you've ever changed a configuration in your production environment manually, and I won't make people raise hands because I don't want to call you out too bad, but if you have, you are at risk just from that. Because there was a whole slew of those S3 misconfiguration buckets where I think it was Capital One. This was a little bit earlier on when cloud was newer, where they just were accidentally configuring things wrong. And now like the defaults of all these storage accounts are much more secure, which is great. But now we have a whole new game of new cloud resources. We have AI models. We have, different types of data sets. We're all working with a lot of new things in the cloud. One of those is probably going to be insecure by default and something we hadn't thought of because it's brand new. And we are going to have another run of cloud resources not set up properly. And if you are changing things manually, there's a high risk. There's also a high risk of like, you went to change it and you went to hit like, lock this down, make it secure. And you actually changed it to, this is my test instance, make it wide open. So you can literally click the wrong button and cause a breach. A red team exercise is amazing if you can. So this is where you would get an outside organization to actually like attack your app on purpose. And ideally you would do this both with and without code. This is another one where like no one really wants to say like, let's see what they can do, because what if they find something? And no one really wants to share their results, but if anyone tries this because they see what we have, these are a little bit generalized, but we're willing to share some of ours. So when we had a red team exercise done, and we are really security focused when we're building this. This is something that we think about every time we're building these applications and we're adding this feature. It's like, how do we make sure this is secure? And there was a cached endpoint that leaked sensitive information. We hadn't really considered someone going directly to the cache and saying, give me this info. And there wasn't a role check on that pull either. So API endpoints missing role checks. So users, if they could go straight to the API, that they could do things that they shouldn't have been able to do. When we had this done, actually, like maybe half an hour after we gave this group the code to do it, they email us and say, well, I'll send you the full results, but real quick, I was just able to insert this admin user. Oh, shoot. So that was our top priority, and we made sure to do that right away. There were race conditions. There were other major and minor findings throughout. But they were able to find out in just a few minutes of looking at the code of exactly what is, exactly how to insert an admin user. We did provide the source code in our case, and so if you can, they were definitely able to find a lot more with providing that source code. Because just because one group doesn't find it without the source code doesn't mean someone else won't. So if you are going to have someone do that red team, let's have them be thorough. Let's have them find as much as they possibly can. Let's make it worth it. All right, so you might be feeling a little overwhelmed. There's a ton to do. You know, no app is going to be perfect, but we can start with new features. We can start with new features today and start with what you're working on right now. Code grows up, code grows out. How much of your code in your code base right now is 1 year old? How much of it's 2 years old? How much of it's 3 years old? So if you can make this a priority today and you can start doing this now, as your code grows up and grows out, you know, a year from now, this might not be much of a daunting task to go back and revamp the security on the rest of your application. 2 years from now, this might be an easy task to go back and revamp the security of the rest of your application. So this security, this is a mindset. These are not black and white answers. This is dependent on your application. This is dependent on what you build. So for the devs in the room, if you don't build it, this is not going to get built. It is on you, specifically you, not the other guy who has the other ticket, you, to build what you need built. If you're in QA, if you're not looking for it, it's probably not going to get found. Just because you're testing and you're not dictating the structure doesn't mean you should not be looking for these vulnerabilities, looking for these options, looking for these workarounds, and even just thinking about it, like, hey, does this have the role checks to the back end? And then for the architects, if you don't plan for it, it's not going to get incorporated. For sales, if you're not selling it, if you're not selling this is going to be a secure application and we're going to dedicate 20% of the hours in this application to making it secure, it's not going to have the budget for it. If you're in marketing, if you are not selling to your users that it's secure and you are not educating the users on how to keep their selves secure, we need to be educating them because if they're breached, you're breached. So that is often the job of marketing. So if not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Now is your moment. And now is your moment, every moment, for the foreseeable future. So this is that mindset that you need to have as you work through in the applications that you're building and in your daily lives, and that new account that you just set up, and that new bank account, and the new social media account, and whatever else it might be. All right, so let's move a little bit beyond this cybersecurity we've known for years. And let's talk about AI and cybersecurity. AI is very interesting in what's happening in the cybersecurity space. There's a lot of different angles to AI and cybersecurity. And in some ways, AI is being used right now as the villain. So phishing emails have never been more convincing. You can take someone who doesn't speak English at all, and they can say, give me details, I'm boss. Put that into a prompt, and get an amazingly convincing email that sounds like it's from their boss that says, give me the financial details. So it's very easy, that barrier to entry to make a convincing phishing email has just become so low. And they can also be highly personalized. They can literally, once they take that token and they're in your email, they download all your emails, they take your sent box, they can train a model to sound like you. they sound like me in this based on the last 1,000 emails that I sent. That's a very convincing thing. We've seen some of these emails that these bad actors, they've got into these mailboxes and they've sent out emails. They're like, oh, that was a great trip last weekend, referencing a previous email, putting in some emojis. Like, they really sounded like them. It's crazy. So this one doesn't have a fun picture because I think it is probably one of the saddest pieces. AI can be used for it's being used for romance scams on some of our most vulnerable members of society. Some of our loneliest people, some of our elderly. They are, they're out there, they're lonely, they're sad, and someone sends them an email. It's like, oh, hey, I just found you somewhere. They send them a Facebook friend request, and they become their digital girlfriend, digital boyfriend. And then they're, oh, I'm going to build us a house in Argentina. Can you send me just your portion? It's $1 million house. I just need $10,000 for this one contractor. This is really sad of what's happening here with this AI. And they're able to do it in a so much more effective way by using these models. I mean, on the flip side of this, we do also have AI being used for elderly care. Taking someone with dementia who's going to ask that same question 75 times in a day, it's going to frustrate even the most patient nurse. But you ask your digital assistant the same question 75 times in a day, and it's going to be very happy and upbeat to answer you for that 75th time. But at least we can trust a phone call. We don't need to, if we get a phone call, we know it's them. Not really anymore with AI. These models are being trained on seconds of a voice. So I'm on YouTube right now being live streamed. This is way more than enough of my voice to go out there, call my mom, and say, hey, I'm in jail in Argentina. Shoot. Can you wire me 20 grand? I gotta get out of here. They don't serve steak in jail in Argentina. So loved ones calling to ask for bail money is literally happening right now with these fake voices. And how many people are on TikTok, Instagram, these social media platforms today where they've posted some video talking about their coolest outfit for today, it looks so good, and that's the video they use. So because you want to tell people about your outfit for the day, you just created an AI model that someone can grab and call your mom and ask for bail money. Or your boss calling to ask for a wire transfer. This isn't just being used personally, but you have these more public figures. You have, they can look up who your boss is on LinkedIn, see if they did a TED Talk one time, and then take that, train a model, call you, ask you to wire over to this new vendor that you got. They took the time to do the research, find out who these people are, make deep fake models of them, have all this prep done. $9.5 trillion industry, $25 million payout. It's more money than most people make in their entire lifetime. They could spend a year preparing for this and it's still worth it. A year, it's easily worth it. 2 years. If they just wait 2 years, they could probably do this 10 times easier too, the way AI is progressing. So this is going to become more and more prolific. And then talked about a little bit yesterday, misinformation. Misinformation campaigns can be done more easily and more effectively than ever using AI, using bots, fake accounts. And some of the content we're seeing with this misinformation is state-sponsored. So this can have a major impact with minimal effort. Half an hour of work can get tens of millions of views, hundreds of millions of views. So let's talk about AI, the hero, the flip side of this. AI is not only a villain, it can be your hero, it can save the day. So there are intrusion and threat detection and prevention by scanning just huge amounts of data we couldn't consume manually ever. You ever try to look through 1 million lines of a log? No, it's stupid. You can't look through 1 million lines of a log, but AI can. AI to predict user behavior and actually warn and block on odd behavior. This is really an amazing thing. Like if you see a user who always accesses these 10 files or these 10 sites, and they usually work from home. And then suddenly they're on a different IP address, and they access those 10 files, no problem. But what about when they get on that other IP address and they access 100 files, 150 files, and they're searching for the word financial, they're searching for the word credit card, they're searching for the word ACH, those odd searches, popping that and locking out that user. That new email security tools able to detect these scam and phishing emails more effectively. So we have more effective scams, more effective detection. Next we'll have more effective scams, then we'll have more effective detection. It's going to be back and forth. This is going to be an ongoing game. AI analysis of labeling sensitive data, so to add additional security tools. A lot of products like Microsoft, they have Purview and Microsoft Information Protection, which allows you to apply labels to data that add extra security policies. So with these AI, it can actually detect and run through all your data and look for something that looks sensitive and apply those extra policies to it. And you have essentially staff augmentation. So tools like Copilot for Security from Microsoft can take a very junior level security analyst, make them 50 times more productive, and make them have the same skill set as a very senior level analyst. So these tools are able to kind of come right alongside our developers and our security professionals and actually help them stay more secure. And probably one of my favorites, except for ourselves. We have to do this, and we need to be doing this every day. So going beyond AI, let's talk about encryption. So is it encrypted? I'll bet anyone who's ever, got a question from their clients or a business analyst, is it encrypted? This question's kind of a crazy question, because is it encrypted in transit? Well, is it over the internet? This is the easy one. People are like, is it encrypted? And they usually mean over the internet. Doesn't use HTTPS. But is it encrypted between cloud resources? So when you're running that VNet or VPC, and you're passing the data from your API VMs over to your database, is that encrypted? Does it need to be? Between applications running on the same VM, if your API has different aspects of it running together, is it passing the data between those applications in an encrypted way? Does it need to be? Is it encrypted at rest? At the database level? At the OS level? And if it is encrypted, who's managing the keys? Are they customer managed keys? Are they platform managed keys? If they're platform managed keys, do you trust the platform that you're running on it? And is it encrypted in compute? So is it encrypted in memory? There's a new kind of angle with these encryption of encrypting in memory. Encrypting confidential compute is what Microsoft calls it. While it's processing the CPU, can you trust the boot image? So is everything encrypted, but the boot image was compromised? So how do you know that the boot image, when your API scaled up, that scale up still had a high quality and secure VM underneath it? So, but is it encrypted over the internet? Quantum is coming. And with quantum, it's expected to make HTTPS useless. RSA is expected to basically become a useless cryptographic method. And what if all of your social media traffic was suddenly unencrypted? That'd probably, maybe for some people, be embarrassing of how many cat videos they liked or what things they follow or whatever. But what if all of your banking internet traffic was unencrypted? That might be a bigger deal. Get those account numbers. Or what if in a country's military traffic and all of their communications were unencrypted? This is getting into an entirely different level of what it could mean to have RSA just stop working, to just stop being relevant. And experts are predicting this to happen between 2030 and 2035. And there's been breakthroughs like Microsoft's logical qubits that are 800 times more stable than the physical ones. And so I really think that with some of these things, we are really going to get there. And I think it's going to be amazing what we found. I read literally 2 days ago that there's a whole new material that's able to keep electrons in their states, their superposition for longer. Like, they're coming out with these breakthroughs every single day. And quantum is both coming and it's already here in classic quantum fashion. So you might already be at risk, even though these breakthroughs are not here yet in quantum. But there are state actors that are taking this data and they're doing a store now, decrypt later. So they're hoovering up as much of this internet traffic, as much of this encrypted traffic as they can. And they put it on servers and they stash it to the side. And the idea is that 5 to 10 years from now, they're going to go ahead and unencrypt it. And there's some data that doesn't matter. 5 years from now, that data is no longer valid, but there's some data that is incredibly sensitive forever. I mean, a simple example of a social security number, or a DNI number, these don't change. We want them to stay secure, and they can be available whenever. So quantum-resistant cryptography is also both coming and here. We have NIST that held a quantum-resistant cryptography algorithm contest. It started in 2016, and the winners were announced in 2022. And they actually just released their first post-quantum encryption standards in 2024. Little side note for everyone. Have you ever considered what's going to happen, what we're going to be able to do with AI when we have quantum computing and that fully arrives? I think that's going to be an incredible place, and I hope that's something that comes in the next few years, and that's going to be a whole different bag, and that's going to change the whole world, I think. All right, so let's bring it back to today. If you take something away from today, cybersecurity is never done. It's a moving target, and you, all of you, need to be moving with this target. You are responsible for the cybersecurity of yourself and every user of every app that you work on. If your application of 1,000 users, you're responsible for 1,000 people's cybersecurity. 10,000 users, you're responsible for 10,000 people's cybersecurity. 1 million users, 10 million users. And cybersecurity is a mindset. This is something we need to be thinking about every day, and this needs to be what we really consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Great talk. Bueno, un lujo enorme, ¿no? Paraba de sacarle fotos a los...
The talks we've had today were really wonderful, and I hope you're enjoying it too. We're going to have some time to welcome Ariela Spanning. Let's give her a welcome, a round of applause to welcome Juanca and Walter. The legislature of the city of Cordoba will give a recognition to Santex. Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. On behalf of the legislative body of the province of Cordoba, comprised by 70 lawmakers, we are willing to work in favor of companies such as Santex to provide the right ecosystem in terms of regulations and laws. We would like to celebrate this 25th anniversary of Santex. I think that joint work is so important, and your work as a company, Santex, is so important. You can count on us. Congratulations. Thank you. The plaque says that the legislative body of the province of Córdoba, in recognition of the international conference Santex Week, recognizes Santex for the contributions in terms of economy, of knowledge, and technologies. This is signed by Miria Brunotto and myself, Córdoba, November 2024. And this is the declaration also signed by the Vice Governor. And this is, well, a present for Santex and all of you here. Thank you. Thank you, Ariela, Juanca, and Walter. We'll now move on to the next talk. You may have seen a lot of free shops as you traveled. Isadora is a local brand that has grown exponentially. I will now welcome the technology expert of this brand. Let's welcome Rafael Ignacio Sanchez. It's an honor to have you here. Rafael leads digital transformation at BSG, which is Isadora is the third the third most important fashion company in the country, with a very disruptive approach with the incorporation of machine learning and AI. Rafael, the floor is yours. Thank you. I don't know how many of you women are familiar with Todo Moda and Isadora, because BSG is not so popular, but our brands are. A couple of days ago, Juan Carlos asked me if I could share some cases that we apply in our company that started about 30 years ago in Buenos Aires, and with time we took advantage of data and we grew some applications that allow us to be in different countries. Right now we're present in 12 countries. We're the third company in the world, but we want to be the first one, the top one. Today I'd like to show you some cases coming from different AI applications that were very down to earth and very. So first of all, an overview of the group. So just saying that this company started in Buenos Aires in 1995 with a store, a low-cost company. Then we started Isadora, and it became the third largest company in the world. There are 800 stores, 15 e-shops. There are over 4,000 talents around the globe, with operations in China, Spain, Argentina, China, where we have 2 factories, warehouses that distribute over 60,000 products a day. We have our own designs with a team of over 60 in-house designers, always aiming at an explicit experience. Over 300,000 data that we create on a daily basis. We aim at having a social and economic impact. So all of this, briefly speaking. Today I'd like to show you some cases that we usually share, because we believe that these kind of conferences attract many ideas, particularly everything that has to do with this disruptive change of AI that I mean, this is always a starting point that probably, inspire new initiatives and questions. So the first suggestion, this world of ideas and innovation that makes us feel sort of anxious about, for us, I mean, what was useful was to have a very solid strategy, considering three main pillars. First of all, efficiency. We produce over 30,000 products, new products a year, design, stage, and we send samples and so on, logistics, then they are sent to the store, and then they are sold. This includes over 10 million operations. So this means that if we improve efficiency, we can clearly improve the business as a whole. Then I'll show you some more specific applications. Second pillar is experience. We want to lead experience. So we need to consider which are the actions that allow for good experiences and how we can change them. The third pillar is a creative proposal. A product is selected based on a preference. So how can we have, increasingly beautiful products, nicer products? Let's go to our stores. In our stores, we create a concept. We call it management by potential. We started this a few years ago. This is a starting point. Back then, it was more in the field of analytica. Suppose you have 800 sales points. So you see that someone is using the phone. So, for example, the first assumption is, as they are watching, or they're watching their phones, they are not going to buy anything. So there's so many factors. There were so many factors based on perception. So we end up coming up with a hypothesis that has a connection with the low performance. So we made different decisions, wrong decisions. And so I was the country manager of Argentina, and back then it was not really useful. I mean, this way of managing data. So what we said is, okay, we can find a common pattern in our stores. Are there any variables that behave the same way? How many people buy? Which are the products that are sold the most? Which is the stock difference? So we added up different variables, and one of those variables, as the ones I'm showing, is customer satisfaction, which is NPS, and the other is stock difference. And so we identified a convergence of high performance variables, and generally at the back, this is a big sort of noise in the management, but then we lose focus of the optimal aspects of the business. So we came up with this theory where we segregated results, but then the result or the output. So we segregated this by output and optimum. And so we measure the deviation, and we tell them, okay, we say, okay, which are the best or the most important areas of opportunities. And so the team was able to achieve the result, so interaction became much better, so more reports were requested. So the dynamics was the the dynamics was pretty much like this. I mean, this was the first thing we considered to achieve the result. So this also helped us measure other variables. So for example, if it was too hot in the store, then sales dropped. We could identify which were the sectors that sold most. So we kind of changed the layout of the store. This is really, it's all about basic things to do, but there are variables that lead to success. And so we digitalized this. This is quite straightforward. It was quite straightforward at the beginning. So we did all of this. I mean, we shared this with the team through different boards so that each person can identify its maximum capacity. We followed this fractal logic from mathematics. For us, a report should have a single interpretation, which is the opportunity. So anyone can actually release a report and goes to the micro and always sees the same image. So it's always easy to understand whether it's a director or, I mean, who is in the store. Then we put this in groups just to see who's closer to the optimum. Who's closer, as if it were a high-performance athlete. So this is the first part. Then we went on to machine learning. So what happens if we start teaching the system? And we had many cases that it was a challenge for us to pick the right price for the product. So when we think about the main business variable, this is called, I mean, we use the P's, I mean, the positioning, the price, and so on. Where we locate a store, I mean, usually a good location, you're just waiting for it, and the right venue appears, and then you have to make the decision. So we came up with an algorithm. So we trained it with the right variables. That included, for example, whether the store was close to other good brands, how many people pass by, different kinds of questions. If we took it to a system, we could see that all of the stores we previously had actually complied with this hypothesis with a 90%. I mean, the algorithm said or stated whether the store was going to be successful or not. It's sort of a consultant, right? That the system gave us the right information for us to make the decision. We would then able to apply this to everyday processes. In each store, a person comes in, we need to set up the right team that is going to be working in the store, how many people go to the store on Mondays, Tuesdays, and so on. I mean, any place in the world, this is pretty much the same, so we needed to decide how to make the solution or to have the solution aligned to the prediction sales. This match is a mathematical challenge that took us a year to solve. This year we were able to save $5 million. For us, it's a lot of money. And this is something that I strongly recommend. There are automation tools. For example, this one, a person needed to create QRs for all of the stores, 800 QRs that had to be correctly, designed. So in 2 hours, we came up with a no-code program that automated this routine job. So this job is really, really annoying, and so you're not going to pay a programmer to do this. And this kind of solutions this is Microsoft, by the way. Power Automate is a tool that is available. Then we went into Phygital, how to lead experiences. We did something very interesting, which is, in the world of fashion, whether something is beautiful or not is really important. What is beautiful means I'm going to manufacture more. If it's not, then I have to remove the product or stop buying or manufacturing the product. The challenge was to measure this appeal, and we came up with this methodology that measures the how suitable, it measures how suitable a product is, and that indicates how appealing it is, and we do it every day. And so we come up with what we call the appeal vector that indicates how beautiful it is. And what happens with the most appealing products? Well, these are the products that you can diversify. So then we were able to digitalize what was beautiful. There are always variables that cannot be digitalized. As Jay said before, take the challenge that what is experienced can be digitalized with an inference. We call this sellability, and so we can actually, if the factories are in Argentina, we can actually in 72 hours manufacture the product and replace the product or have the product in the stores right away. This was another challenge. In each store, you'll see many products. That how much space should I give to each category? As we have the likelihood of commercialization for each product, so we can allocate the right space for each product. This is a mathematical challenge because a lot of the decisions that need to be made, we can use a regression, like in this case. These are different items. Then we come up with a hypothesis with an infinite number of items, and this allowed us to optimize all of the stores around the globe. It's when you see the stores when you see the items in the stores, you see that there's some mathematics behind it. This is the product space, which is how likely it is. If you sell a product, how likely are you sell another product? This is what was said before. It's a customer journey. How you organize the layout of a store so that the likelihood of purchase is maximized. And this how I make this journey steady. And mathematically, we can find ways, we can combine products. And this is more this has more to do with the application of artificial intelligence. We receive over 1,000 comments. Each comment gives us a message. This message can, state what the customer liked or something about the price, customer experience, basically. We take each message via artificial intelligence. We classify it into different topics: communication, price, loyalty, and so on. All of this is, if it's red, not good, comments. If it's green, good, and so on. And so here we can see with different colors how this changes a long time, and this is how we manage customer voice, the voice of the customer via AI. Finally, the creative proposal. How can we make the proposal? Can we improve the proposal? This is something that is being done a lot today, is to generate content. Barbie, last year, we were not expecting Barbie to be such a boom. And so with different images, how images are created, we wouldn't have been able to make this possible without AI. Almost all the images have AI, and what I'm shown here is a description of the product. The description has to be written very, very accurately, and there are many, many products. So the content has to be localized. So we want to have all of the items based on the images on the software so that it can provide different kind of voices where the products are described. And this is the generation of items via AI. The system is trained not with GPT because there's nothing to be sold there, but we trained with many, many images of our company, and together with a designer we co-created, and this is the value, right? So it's a step-by-step process, but then a good result is achieved. This is all now developed in-house. We worked with third parties that are validating it all the time. We are a family-owned company, so we're not Google. So what I mean is that this is possible. This is a kind of a technological, immersive technological application. Remember, metaverse. For us, when we design a store, it has to be very nice. First, we use 2D sketches and then 3D. So now we render them in 3Ds. These were stores that were going to be opened in Panama, so we changed the layout, and we can use these kind of technologies to save some changes that are quite costly. This is, of course, this is retail, but it can be applied to different industries, warehouses, real estate, and so on. And now moving on to immersive training. How can we imagine 4,000 people need to be trained? There's some visual changes, we call them, exhibition changes. So an immersive training where people can interact and they can explain, what's the latest collection. If we didn't have this, then, we'd have to travel the world teaching people. So these kind of technologies make it cheaper. And we developed this ourselves. It's a technology that we are escalating. is not fully ready. The general training would be like this for everyone. And why are we doing all this? The fashion industry is a very fast world where, so the more accurate you are, knowing that it's something that is rapidly changing would be more successful, not only in this collection, but in the following collection. So you can open up new stores. Otherwise, you're out of the game. Particularly in this assertive world, the Karen technology is an ally because we can have more accurate predictions, and this has both financial and an environmental impact because we're talking about products that are not good to the world, and we see now a very positive synergy. This is why we spend a lot of time. I mean, to take advantage of it. This convergence is so important. And this is a strategy which is to achieve an autonomous operation. I don't mean that we won't be needing people any longer, but there are many daily operations, like, for example, picking up the price of a product. Now, for 800 stores, and you have to do that on a daily basis, that is totally unfeasible. I mean, decisions made one by one. And a person makes 5-10 decisions and then they get tired very easily. So what we have is, what we want to do is to make decisions across the chain. How to have an automatic process for the whole system. The pilot, as it was said yesterday, the pilot is not checking the fuel levels. The plane could operate by itself, but in case of an emergency, somebody has to be there. So we need the support of the person. So we want decisions to be smarter, but mathematics is going to be the challenge all the time. So we don't want to have an autonomous business or a store, but we want to have a smart autonomous store. And with this, technology is our main partner, our main ally to connect to the brands with our community, and we're here to share these ideas with you. And this is not only for this industry. All of these ideas can be spread across the industry, but we need to have an internal culture that is developing these tools, and of course the leaders in the companies. So how to make all of these expectations, how to align them with a digital transformation journey. What is this journey? We have technological solutions, and they need to be chosen so that they are successful. Thank you for the invitation. Very glad to be here in this conference during the Mathematics Olympics. Contest that is being carried out in the cities. Thank you.
Quédate un segundo. No, quédate un segundo. La verdad que a mí me voló la cabeza, ¿no? No sé si a ustedes les pasó lo mismo. Es un caso.
This is a very, very unique case in math. The math of fashion. My son and your son are both competing in the final of the Math Olympics. So I'm sure they were there together. It's an honor. A huge round of applause to Rafa. Congratulations to your son who is in the finals. Denise Eliberto is the winner. Denise, are you there? Or maybe on streaming, she's there. You won the award, so go pick it up in the reception. We're gonna have a break. An amazing morning, lots of great content. I say goodbye. I fly back to Buenos Aires. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.